There we go. Hello, hello. This is Rod, Live Within Your Means. Hey, it is February 4th, Wednesday, February 4th, and we're going to talk about some things here that many of you need, and that is help with your finances and how to be able to make it and live a more full life with a lot less stress. So, we're going to talk about things that are going to be helpful to you. Now, I've had this channel for a few years, haven't been active doing things lately on it. A few years ago, I did some videos that got some views, you know, doing a root cellar, do it yourself, root cellar out behind my father's garage, how to make your swamp cooler, actually get a lot cooler, and that's something people had an interest in. Other things that I talked about, like the fact that 4 years ago the banks were buying a lot more gold and metals than the people were. Well, we're going to talk about things that are really going to be helpful to you right now. What I did is I went to Grok and Perplexity, and I went to Perplexity. You can go to I go here because I'm not paying for this. Perplexity. If you go to Perplexity AI, now be careful. There's some of those that will mislead you, where they'll take you somewhere else. But you can actually go to Perplexity and ask questions without paying a bunch of money. And if you've got a profile on X, so I've got on X Live Within Your Means, little Live Within Your Means profile somewhere on here. I do, and haven't really ever posted, and I've only reposted some things on there. But there's my Live Within Your Means profile, which allows me to have access to Grok to ask Grok questions. And there's a version of Grok that doesn't cost any money. You can go in here too, and they'd like to have you upgrade and pay a bunch of money, but you don't have to. And what I did on Perplexity, I went into Perplexity and I asked, what is the median family household income? Now, the median household income is around $83,000, $84,000 in the U.S., and that the average household has 2.5 persons per household. In other words, there's households with just one person, there's households with 5 people, but the median, which is the average taking out the extremes, is 2.5 persons and around $83,000 to $84,000 income. And what I did here is I said, what percentage, and let me make this nice and big for you, what percentage of America's household income goes to what categories? Well, we do know that if the median income is around $83,000, $84,000, a lot of us have a household income that is less than that, and these are people that really can use a little bit of help in knowing how to do things a lot easier and have your money go a lot further. So we're going to talk about that. Now, a lot of people spend a huge portion of their money on rent or a mortgage payment, but basically on housing. Usually around a third of people's income is spent on housing, whether that be for an apartment or a house payment. They spend a huge percentage, also 13%, on transportation. That would be on gasoline, that would be on car payment, or on a rental payment for their car. So those are two great big things right there. Those two add up to almost half of the family's income, 46% right there. And when you add in another 12% for food, 60% of the household income is gone. Then when you get down and spend some on your pension or retirement, which a lot of people don't even have money going into those things, and then throw in another 8% for health care, and for a lot of us, it's more than 8% for health care, all of a sudden, you're up in the 70 plus percent of your income is gone. 70 to 80% of your household income, there's not a whole lot left to do other things with. And yes, some people spend a little bit on entertainment. A lot of people spend about 3% of their income on apparel, which is clothing and all, 2% on education, and then there's other things like cash contributions, maybe to your church, different charities. Really sad, but a lot of people spend a lot of their money on tobacco and alcohol, other miscellaneous items. So let's talk about the things that we can make a big difference on One of those right off the bat is going to be tobacco and alcohol. If you consume any significant amount of tobacco and alcohol, you probably have a habit and maybe an addiction, and that line is kind of blurred there. What's a habit? What's an addiction, right? Nevertheless, a lot of people may spend 10% of their money on tobacco and alcohol. That's an awful lot of your money and approaches what a lot of people spend on food. And for some people, they spend more on alcohol and tobacco than they do food. I will say right off the bat, Alcoholics Anonymous, and there's also, there's other anonymous groups for people with problems with tobacco and even with food. You know, 3/4 of Americans are overweight, and a good third of Americans, and I'm throwing this statistic out, I would guess that nearly a third of Americans are obese, and that, of course, depends on your definition. So I would be looking up some of the nonprofit 12-step groups for that. But here, we're going to focus right now on some of these other things. And we'll talk about housing a little bit later. But I want to talk about a big one right now, which is transportation. Because if people are spending 13% of their income on transportation, that is something that can very easily be avoided. So I'm going to introduce you to a site here, and no one's paying me to show you this. This is a site called ksl.com. So let's make that big so people can see it. ksl.com right up here in the top left. ksl.com is owned by, it's owned by Bonneville Communications, which is actually owned by the LDS Church. And they have fantastic classified ads and also a section for cars, okay? And that's an option on cars. And so when you go to ksl.com and you click on here, you're going to learn some things here today that are going to be really, really helpful. And we're going to spend some other episodes, other time videos teaching you to use this and how this can save you a heck of a lot of money. So if you go to the cars section on KSL, let's click on that. And this is one of the best, if not the very best place that you can learn unbiasedly about automobiles and which automobiles you might consider buying to save yourself a bunch of money. So take a good look at this, make this big on your screen, but let's take a look at this. If you want to go and buy a car, and here this focuses mostly on Utah, but also there's stuff in the surrounding states, in Idaho, Nevada, a little bit in Arizona, a little bit to the east in Colorado, and also northeast up in Wyoming. But look at this, there are 63,000 vehicles available. The reason that this can, there's a lot of reasons, but one of the main reasons this can be so helpful is because you can learn which cars are really going to last, which cars people want to buy, what kind of prices they're really paying for them. You don't need a Blue Book subscription. You can look on here. And I will tell you that I once, shall I say, managed a small automobile dealership. I didn't want to, but the owner of that automobile dealership, a used car dealership, he fired his manager back 36 years ago, because I told him I wanted to work for him and just buy some cars with my own money and sell those cars. And I told the owner I'd use my money and I would split the profit on each of those cars with him, which I did. I kept track of all the expenses on those cars. I cleaned them up. I sold them. I didn't make a lot of money. It's just something I was doing when I got out of college 36 years ago. And because I guess he realized I was always truthful and honest with him, he fired his manager and wanted me to be his manager. I did not do that long. I didn't want to do that long. I actually went to work, to be honest with you, for a real estate appraisal firm shortly after that, and I continued to buy some cars. But KSL.com wasn't available then. We had to use the classified ads in the newspapers to find cars to be able to purchase other than when people would come into the dealership. And I got pretty good at buying used cars and finding good deals that we could clean them up and resell for a little bit more. Didn't make a lot of money doing it, but I'm going to share some things with you. Let's take a look and find out which of these cars are going to last you a long time. And the way we're going to do that, let's look at the mileage. And so this is going to give us a number of options. There's other things here, filters that we can use. But one of the first things I want to do is show you, let's look at the cars, for example, that have a habit of going over 300,000 miles, because we're going to look at cars that are for sale, that are still running, right? A lot of those cars have over 300,000 miles on them that are for sale. And when we put that in, and then we jump to another section, if we go down to the bottom here, look at this. There are 200 out of 66 something thousand cars. There are 214 cars. 214 cars that are for sale that have over 300,000 miles on them. Well, wouldn't you like to know which cars those are? Well, we're going to look together and I'm going to show you. But we don't want just cars that are, the pieces of junk out there. So let's look at the price on here and let's get rid of the ones that are, say, they're $1,000, under $1,000. And when we put that in, now, let's see, what did we have? And that's going up to 200,000. Let me go back again and look. Okay, it said there were 210. And what we wanted to do is get rid of the cars. Let's get rid of the cars that are under $2,000, even though a lot of those may be good. And now there's 185 cars here. And let's only go up to those cars. Let's do this again. And what we're going to say is we want cars that are between, let's say between $1,500, $1,500 and $10,000, because you can get a good car for well less than $10,000 that'll last you for years. And it looks like there is 131 of those. There are 131 of those that have over 300,000 miles. Are we wanting to get a car with over 300,000 miles? I don't want a car that has over 300,000 miles, but I want to know which ones have lasted over 300,000 miles. And let me make sure here on the mileage again. I want to make sure that that top end doesn't have anything in it. So let's look at the cars that have 300,000 miles or more, and that, let's say, go up to 600,000 miles. Okay. It says there's 119 of those that are for sale between $1,500 and $10,000. Wow, 119 of them. Well, let's take a look and see what makes those cars are. And I really don't want the stuff that's older than 1990 anyway. So let's say 1990 and above. And there's 118 of them. There we go. And let's look at the makes here and see what those are. This is really neat because what you can do here is you can look at these and say, well, let's see, there's one Acura, and there's probably not as many Acuras, right? In fact, there's 17 Chevrolets, there's 17 Dodges, 32 Fords, there were 2 Cadillacs, by the way. GMCs, there's 9, Hondas, there's 10, Hyundais, 1. That's not really that impressive to me that there's only one Hyundai that in that range that has over 300,000 miles on it. So, oops, didn't mean to click that. There's only one Kia. There's 4 Lexuses. Those cost a little bit more money. And I happen to know those expensive cars cost more money to repair. So personally, I would avoid the Lexuses. But if you've had a Lexus and you know how to fix them and have a good friend that does, you might be taking a look at that. Mazdas, there's 1. Nissans, there's 1. Rams, there's 3. Subarus, that surprises me that there's only 1 of those. I thought there'd be a lot more Subarus in there. And Toyotas, there's 14. Volkswagens, there is 1. And it says see all makes. Okay, if we add those other makes in there, There are some more, but you'll notice there's not very many of those. There's two internationals. Those are probably old as the hills, and but I'm guessing. So um, it gives us a good idea that a lot of those are Chevys. A lot of them are Dodges, which really surprised me. And a good number of them are Hondas, and a good number of those are Toyotas. There's 14 Toyotas. Now, you may not be looking for a big car, so I think the next thing we might want to do, and we could even get a little better statistics with a little broader mileage on here. So if we just, instead of just looking at those with over 300,000 miles, we might want to drop it down and say, okay, well, let's look at the stuff that has 275,000 miles or more. So let's just get rid of that. And I'll put in 600,000. Yes, there are a few that say they have over 600,000. That's kind of amazing, and we won't go into a lot of detail there. Look, now we've got 250 results. And if we look at those, and let's go back up to the part where we were talking about the makes. Now we have a much, okay, look at that. There are 3 Acuras, there are 3 Cadillacs, there are 34 Chevrolets, 23 Dodges, 57 Fords, 18 GMCs, 24 Hondas. There are a few Hyundais. There's 5 of them there. And Lexus, there's 10 of them. So there's actually, for as few Lexuses as there are out there, there's quite a few of them that go over 300,000 miles. But like I said, I believe they're quite expensive to fix. Nissans, there's 5. Rams, there's 5. Subarus, there's only 3. Well, that's interesting. Toyotas, wow, 46. There's almost as many as there are Fords, and there's more Toyotas than there are Chevys. And that's something I've already known because I've done a lot of research and buying cars over the years. So that's really good to know. And if we want to know what some of these are, well, I know that a lot of those Chevys are going to be big pickups. And if you're not looking for a big pickup, you may not want to use a filter the way I'm going to right now. One of these filters, what I'm going to use is the engine. Now, maybe you don't want a diesel. 66 of all those cars are diesel engines. 161 have gasoline engines. And this tells you more about the size of the engines, which is, it can be really helpful. But also, when we get down here far enough, it tells us how many cylinders. Look at that. The bulk of those have 8 cylinders. So those are big engines like the trucks have. So if you want to look for a truck, click that and take a look at the trucks. If you want to look for a little 4-cylinder with really good gas mileage, click on that, and then you can take a look, see a little bit more. If you've got a family and maybe you want something with a little more power, you might look at the 6-cylinder engine. So let's look first at the 4 cylinders. Okay, now there's only 48 of those. We're going to go back up here and we look at the makes on here. Look at this. 4 cylinders, 3 of them are Chevys, 2 are Fords, 14 of those are Hondas. Well, that's good to know. 3 are Hyundais. I'm ignoring those with just 1. 3 of them are Subarus. 16 of those are Toyotas. Well, I am really fond of Toyotas, so I'm going to click the Toyota here, and guess what that's going to do? That's going to break those 16 down, and guess what? Look how helpful that is. 7 of those are Camrys. I own a Camry. It's got 209,000 miles. They have a habit of lasting a long time. A lot of them go over 300,000 miles. And a lot of people don't even sell them. They drive them till they die. 2 of those are Corollas. 2 are Priuses, okay, that have gone over 275,000 miles. Let's see if there's any more. Yeah, there's 2 RAV4s, okay. And so a way to look at this, like, say you're looking for a 4-cylinder car, you know that Toyotas have a good reputation, and you know, guess what? That Camrys there are more Camrys that go over 275,000 miles than there are most other vehicles out there. And so let's take a look at the Camrys. There's a reason we're going to look at those. Okay, we're going to look at these Camrys now, and these are the ones that have over 275,000 miles on them. Boy, that doesn't look terrible, does it? And that's got 278,000 miles. Look at this Camry. That's got 282,000 miles. This one has 303,000 miles. That's $1,500. Well, understandably, because it has over 300,000 miles. And if we want to click and see the details on these, here's another one, 275,000 miles. It's another Camry. That's a 2009. They want $5,700 for that. These others are 2,500, 4,500, and 1,500 miles. And then there's some here that don't have photos. That's really not very appealing when they don't put a photo in. Doesn't make you want to look at it, does it? Well, let's look at this one that's only 1,500 miles. Let's just look at it for a minute. Well, we know after all these years, this is a 2000 like mine. The clear coat is finally going bye-bye on the trunk, breaking up. That's really not a bad looking car for 1,500 miles. Let's look at the comments. Awesome, reliable commuter car. Commuter car gets good gas mileage, rides very smooth, starts every time, has new tires. That right there is about $500, and maybe more, $400 to $600, and a new battery. Yeah, let's just say that's worth $500 right there. Does well in the snow, does have a few small dents and an oil leak, but honestly, that car might even last you a bit longer. It's only $1,500. Well, let's look at a couple of these others. So here's one they want $4,500 for. It's got 278,000 miles on. That's a 2010. Still looks absolutely great. What does it say? Just don't search it, drive it. In other words, they're saying this is a good car, right? It's got a 2.5 liter engine in it. And I think if we go back to that other, the one that was a 2000, if it's like mine, it probably has a 2.2 liter engine in it. And you can look at the specifications right here. And what does it have? It looks like, does it tell us? Let's see. We know it's got a four-cylinder. We know that it's front-wheel drive. Maybe they don't know which engine it has in it. I would guess it probably has a 2.2 liter engine in because a lot of them do. And let's look a little bit more. Let's look at this one, 2005 Camry. They want $2,500. And let's see what it says. Isn't it amazing? Cars with this much mileage on. What does it say? Excellent commuter car? Yeah, because a lot of these are still running well. And now this one has a 2.4 liter engine in it. It's got a 5-speed transmission. But there's other things that you can do here in narrowing this down. So let's go back to this and let's change the mileage on here and find some cars that have much, much lower miles. We'll get rid of that and we're going to look for some things. And what happened is all of our stuff moved down here on the side. So we've already got it set for the Toyotas and for the Camrys. Let's go down and let's look for a Camry that has under 200,000 miles, knowing that they frequently go a lot over that. So now we're only looking at Camrys that have under 200,000 miles. And what does it tell us? How many have we got? 97 of them. 97 of them. Well, gee, that's a lot to look at. Let's look for those that have under 150,000 miles. Okay, what does it tell us? We go up here to the top, there's 50 results of Camrys that have under 50,000 miles on them. And let's say that you don't have $10,000 to spend, but maybe you could come up with $5,000. Now there's 4 of them. There are 4 Camrys that are over $1,500, but they're under $5,000. Let's take a look at those. Wow. Oh my goodness. Here's a white, I like white, Camry that has, it's $5,000, only has 45,000 miles on it. That is rather amazing. I wonder if there's something wrong because that low a mileage, and if there's nothing wrong with it, that's really amazing. Well, where's their comments and their notes? If they're not going to give us descriptions, I will avoid that. And I'm going to tell you something. What I learned to do when someone was selling a car is I wanted to know a few things right off the bat. When I call them up, if they had a phone number here, this only has a message to send a message. Yeah, I wouldn't even, I probably wouldn't be responding to that because they didn't put a description in here. But let's look at those other Camrys. This one, the 2001, that's going to be real comparable to mine, only has 135,000 miles. They only want $3,100. That is probably an absolute, if there's not any big things wrong with it, it's probably a very good car to get. Why don't I see a description? When I look at the specifications, it tells it, yeah, it's got that 2.2 liter engine in it. It's got a clean title. It means that there's been no big insurance claims on it, no big wrecks. And wow, wow, 3,000 bucks. Look at that. A car that has only 135,000 miles, and it's the type of car that frequently goes up to 275, 300,000 miles, often more. Yeah, that would probably be worth your time. And when you click right here, there's a phone number for it. So what I would do is I would call this person. This ad's been in only 9 hours. And I would use my phone and I would call the number on there. So I'm going to call that number and show you how to see if this car might be worth looking at. It certainly looks like it, but they didn't put a description in. Now that's one concern I've got right there. But there's a number. So I'm going to ask him, are you the owner? Are you the owner on title of that car? I'm going to ask them, why are you selling the car? And then, how's it running? Because you didn't put a description on, and what kind of things does it need? Those are things that we can do that are going to make a difference. And I'm wondering if I should go further on this or end that. I'm going to make the call. And it is right now almost 6. It's about just after 6 in the evening, Utah time. I'm going to call that number 385-466-9445. That's right down here in the bottom. And I'm going to call it and ask a couple of questions on that. Kind of looking like we might not get hold of someone. Yeah, it doesn't look like anyone's answering right now. So I'll hang that up. I'm not going to leave a message on it because I'm really doing this for you guys. I've got a Camry that runs great. It has only 209,000 miles on that might last another 100,000 miles. And but this is something you can do that's going to help you. Can you imagine if you buy a car for 3,000 bucks, let's say with taxes and license and everything, you're into it $3,500, and now you don't have a car payment, but you have a car that very well may last you another 150,000 miles. That's a lot of money that you're going to save each year. And if you don't have a car payment on there, let's say a $400 car payment, um, now maybe you don't have a $200 insurance payment or even a $150 insurance payment. If you have a $350 car payment, a $150 insurance payment, there's $500 a month that you could probably be paying a heck of a lot less because you have a less expensive car. You're going to have a less expensive insurance payment also. And maybe you're one of these guys that has a 5 or 700, say you got a $700 car payment, you're probably paying $200 a month for insurance. That's 900 bucks. Well, if you cut that down to, $150 or $100 insurance payment, Wouldn't you like to have that other 700, 800, you know, five to let's say $700 a month to put toward your other bills or to be saving up toward something else you want, like a house? So this is one of the ways you do it. And I'm going to get into this more to help you find good cars and to help you save money and do other things that are going to save you a bunch of money. So this is Rod. Please, if you haven't done so, you might give this video a like if you like it. And if you'd like to learn things with my 62 years of experience, I've lived within my means. I've made far less than most people, I'll be honest with you, over the years. But I've been able to be honest in my work. On appraisals that I did, I worked as an appraiser. I've worked obviously for a short period selling cars. I've had other jobs before college and during college in restaurants, and I've worked some in real estate. So anyway, but I feel like I've been able to be honest with people. And you know, we just bought a house. We've got a pretty good size mortgage payment that's taking a big chunk of the income that we've got, but we'll be paying that off early down the road here. And how can we do it? Well, by living within our means. And I said for many years, once my daughter asked me, Dad, what's that thing you say about living within your means? And I said that I believe it's the key to being honest in business. I do. So, this is Rod. Thank you for subscribing to the channel if you have. I'll start putting out a lot more stuff that'll be helpful to you. And if this has been helpful to you, you might want to subscribe to the channel. Put some comments down below if you've learned some things here, or if you've saved a lot of money by buying some used cars. And but you don't need to buy a car that's likely to break down. You could buy a car like this Camry, and this Camry, can you imagine people spending $30,000 on a car that'll only last them 150,000 miles, and where you might be able to spend $3,000 on a car that's going to last you 150,000 miles. Everyone pays repairs. A lot of people pay for a new engine or new transmission in a car. You know what? You don't want to spend 3,000 bucks on a car. If an engine goes out on you or transmission, sell it real cheap to a mechanic and go buy another one. And it'll save you a lot of money. So, this is Rod. Live within your means and have a wonderful day.